Hello, everyone. Welcome to a brand new live stream that I didn't even intend to do until I went to a little conference known as Deep Dish Swift, and I did this on stage. It's only the second time I've ever done a live stream on stage in front of an actual live audience, and it was kind of amazing. If you were there, you would know, but there were so many apps that were submitted, and I just had to continue. So I opened up this live stream and I said to everyone in the audience, the apps you submitted for the talk, I'm going to try and do here. And then I figured, why not open it up to the entire community? So I opened up another submission form, and we got even more submissions. I think together, this is the most submissions I've ever received for any live stream. So if I wanted to do all of them, I would probably take maybe 15 or 16 live streams. So that's like well into next year. But I randomly selected 8 this time because I'm going to try and do them faster. And we'll see what we can do. But before we even get started, I'm so excited, so I just jumped right into it. We got to follow tradition. Tell me what's in your cup and where are you from? I'm drinking something new today. This is a chamomile and vanilla tea, and I'm drinking an App Figures mug. And we got a new logo, as some of you already know, so we're going to change these mugs. It's going to be beautiful. But I'm streaming from New York City, which is kind of rainy at the moment. The weather here has been so weird. I don't really know what to make of it. But I'm enjoying my tea, so that's really all that matters. So we got some sparkling water in Paris. I love how we have such a diverse audience from all over the place, but also such a diverse audience when it comes to drinking things. It's not all just coffee. And I guess it's a time zone stuff, but still, it's pretty interesting. So tell me what's in your cup, where you're from. We're going to wait for some more people to shuffle in. I see the numbers continuing to grow. I have a great one for you today. We have a whole bunch of apps. We're going to try and get through as many as possible. I'm on time, which is great. And I'm going to be as punctual as possible. But that doesn't mean that you can't ask questions. So if you have any questions as I get started, please drop them in the comments and I'll try to get them as I go between apps or if it's relevant for the app that I'm looking at. So please ask questions. You know how much I love those. And if you're new here and you have no idea what you're stumbled into, maybe because social media caught you or maybe something else is going on, you're like, who is this guy? Why do I see him all the time? We're going to do something interesting today. I'm going to go through apps submitted by the audience and attendees at the conference, and I'm going to analyze what's good about the App Store optimization and what's not so good or maybe can be improved. I'm going to offer some tips, and I'm going to give my suggestions for what I would do if I wanted to try and get more downloads for the app. And if the app is perfect, which did happen on stage, there was one app that was really, really good, I'll explain why it's really, really good so you can kind of copy those same ideas and do the same. So that's what we're going to do. If you like what you're seeing so far, please give the video a like. I always forget to say this, and my team reminds me on Slack, which I never look at because I'm looking into a camera. So if you like this, now that I remember, please hit the like button, and let's make sure YouTube knows that this is awesome. And I'll also have a nice surprise in just a few moments, but I'm going to talk about the process very, very quickly. Then I'm going to show you my computer, and we're going to start analyzing apps. So my process for this is pretty simple. App Store optimization is really about the name, the subtitle on the App Store, the name and the short description on Google Play, and then the keyword list on the App Store and the long description on Google Play. So I'm going to try and analyze those. I can't see the actual keyword list of any app in the store. That's something that's private. So we're going to guess along those lines. But everything else we can see in the store. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to load it up. We're going to look at it, and then we're going to see if the keywords actually make sense, if they're relevant for the app, if they can actually work for the app, if the app is powerful enough to rank in them. And I'll use my App Figures tools to do all of this because all those App Figures tools are basically built for me. So I'll show you my process, how I do it, and we'll go from there. But let's see what people are drinking. Let me bring up, where is my window? And where's my mouse? I always lose my mouse in these things. Oh, wow. We got a lot of things happening here. France is in the house. I see a lot of people. Oh, French Alps. Wow. Okay. This is great. Germany, UK, Abe Lincoln's hometown. Very cool. Canada, Portugal, India. Oh, wow. This is great. And I already see some questions in the chat. We'll get to those in just a little bit. So I think we're ready to get started. We're at a good point. So let me bring my computer, and let's do this. So you are watching Keyword Inspector. This is my favorite tool and the tool I'm going to be using to do some of this But let's see the first app. So these were selected at random from both the list of submissions for this particular live stream, as well as from Deep Dish Swift last week. And if you don't know what this conference is, I'll leave a link in the description. It's really cool. I had a blast. It was a bunch of people, and the organizers did an amazing, amazing job. Highly recommended. It's happening again in 2025. If you're a developer, you should definitely check it out. That's my little promotion, but you can't even see my face. But I really enjoyed it. So let's take a look at the video teleprompter Evelize. Evelize? It's like evil eyes? Evelize? I'm not entirely sure. But teleprompters are such a difficult and challenging area of the App Store. I know this because as anyone who does videos knows, you want to try a teleprompter at some point. And I tried personally a teleprompter years ago and I hated it. It was very, very difficult to use. And I said, there's got to be something better. There has to be a better teleprompter. And over the last few years, there have been a few, and I actually use a bunch of different ones now, or I've used a bunch of different ones now for my videos, and kind of settled on one. So I know the space kind of okayly well, and it is tough. When you search for a teleprompter, and let's do that quickly. Oops, let's do that quickly. The results don't necessarily make a lot of sense. It's incredibly competitive. A 78 is not 100, but it is pretty competitive. Popularity is pretty high. So a lot of it is really, really challenging. If you want to compete in this space, you really have to know what you're doing. And we're seeing some real oddities right here. So for example, this app, teleprompter for video, there's 2 ratings. They're both kind of awful. And yet it's the number 2 with no duplication. It kind of makes sense. Teleprompter for video, which is the same without the dash, 98, and it's 3rd instead of 2nd. And the only thing is Apple boosts brand new apps in search. So this is not going to stay here for a long time. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So let's go back to Evelize. Evelize. You let me know how this is pronounced in the chat if you're watching. So video teleprompter I think is great. So this is using hopefully what I said about taking your app's name and putting it at the end of the name field, because no one is really trying to rank for Evelize, but everyone is trying to rank for this. So you're really telling the algorithm, this is what my app is all about. Video teleprompter, this is perfect. This is what you want to do. And then record, edit, script, speech. These are things that align with video teleprompter. So record video, edit video, teleprompter, script teleprompter maybe. Video speech, video teleprompter, teleprompter speech, speech teleprompter, like all of those, they make a ton of sense to me. But we have kind of a big challenge here, and that's something that I also came across while talking to people one-on-one, and this happens all the time. I even saw it in very large apps like Expedia, which I did on stage. So the real issue here is there's a lot going on. There's so many keywords here, and even just by looking at this, there aren't enough ratings. 10 ratings will not get you very far unless your app is really new, and maybe you'll get ahead. But that's probably not even the case, because what's happening here is that you need to focus. Focus is such an important thing. If you're focusing on an app, you have to focus on a specific intent. Now, there is a trick to this, which I will give you, but the first thing we have to think about is focus. Let me switch back to my face so I can see myself. But focus is a really important bit, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that the algorithm, especially if you don't have a ton of new ratings, which are the currency for this, you want those to apply to as little as possible. I know that sounds kind of counterintuitive, but you want your ratings to apply to as little keywords as possible, because it will give them the biggest boost. And so if you're trying to go after teleprompters, try to go after the main keyword if you want to go after that, and if you think you can actually make it, and nothing else. So don't try to go after editing videos, because while cool, and your app might be able to do that, you can't really target so many things with such few ratings. So conserve your ratings and use them where they matter, because the algorithm gives you 100% of its juju to really everything it sees. So the less that it sees, the fewer words, the better it's going to be for you. And that's a trick that I think not many apps think about, because it really isn't intuitive. If you think about it as a marketer, you want to throw as many keywords on it as you can, because the more people see, the more reasons they have to download. But we're talking to an algorithm, and as developers, you would know that focus is what's going to help it. So that's really what I think would work here. Now, the other thing is you have an advantage if you're trying to optimize for the US. See, in the US, Apple takes multiple languages, multiple localizations, and they index all of them. So if you have different keywords in English in those localizations, you will get indexed in English in the US in as many localizations as you use. I sometimes get that confused, or sometimes that is confusing, but always use English keywords to rank in English in the US, obviously. But then you have 10 different languages where you can use those. I will link to a guide that I wrote about how this works, why this works, and what all those languages are. So you can go and take advantage of that. And what you can do is you can use different keyword sets across those different ones. So you can have one keyword set that's focused on teleprompter, and one that's focused on video editing, and one that's focused on speech. And that's how I would go about doing this. It is more complicated, but it's a lot more likely to get your results. And I think that's really what matters. So that's what I would do here. Let's see if there's anything else that I can see here that would be interesting. I think, obviously, the screenshots are really nice. I kind of like it. I think teleprompter icons, I've seen so many. They're either all the same or all different, or like two different. So I don't think there's anything wrong with this, but I do think focus on one keyword, one intent. Now, there's another trick, and I'm probably going to run into this with other apps as well, and that is sometimes video teleprompter might be just too competitive. 49, 78, those are big numbers, 544 results. So if you don't actively get any ratings, like this app, you're really in trouble. And so you want to make sure that you at least get some ratings. And this app is kind of new, so it's probably still getting a little bit of a boost, but nothing else interesting or exciting is happening. And this is interesting also. I'm going off topic again, but there is a weird edge case in the App Store where if you don't have a subtitle and never had a subtitle, and only a certain number of apps can have that because they were made in a certain time, if you have that, do not set a subtitle, because what that does is it tells the algorithm that you want to split the 100% juju that we talked about before across more keywords. Don't do that. This works really well. Now, if you have a subtitle, now do not delete it. I made that mistake and it's terrible. The algorithm will penalize you for doing this. So I definitely would not recommend doing that now. I would say do not do that. I did say try it once upon a time, multiple years ago, and I learned my lesson. So definitely don't do it. Now, there isn't much more that I could look into with this app other than start to look for other keywords that might be a little bit less competitive. And what I would do is I would go through and look at, maybe look at a competitive list of all the keywords. So maybe do something like this and analyze the top results, see what they're using, and then go for maybe slightly lower popularity keywords and focus on those first. If you don't have as many ratings, that's a good way to get started. So let's look at the popularity and let's go to maybe page 3. Make it easy. So stay somewhere in the 30s. There's a lot of branded stuff in here. So there's a lot to look at, I think. And that's what I would try and do. I would try to find the keywords that are maybe a little bit more relevant, but also less problematic, less challenging. And that's how I would do this. So let's take a look at some questions. Let's see what we got. Where is my question monitor? My question monitor is here. Oh, wow. Okay. We have a lot of questions. So Alexei's saying not evil, more like Evelize. Evelize? Okay. I'm glad that's how it is. Evil sounded funny to me. Okay, so let's see. I'll try to start at the beginning. There is a lot going on in the chat. Okay, so the first question came in before we even started, but Nick is asking, when trying to rank for long tail keywords, would art frame and photo frame be considered too similar because of frame being repeated? Absolutely. You don't really need to repeat anything. So if you're using art and photo and frame, as long as all three of those are somewhere within your app name, the subtitle, or the keyword list, they're going to get smooshed together. So you have the potential of ranking for both. You don't have to repeat anything. How you place them is really what changes whether you can rank for them or can't, and also how many ratings you have. So you don't have to repeat anything. Repetition is the ultimate sin, the cardinal sin of ASO. Do not repeat. No reason. It's just wasteful. I'm glad we got that out of the way very early into this. Let's see. Gigi is asking if paid installs from ASA lead to organic installs via user invite loop in the app, does it help with ASO? Is it okay to do ASA campaigns in first week of app launch? So 2-in-1 here. Apple search ads will definitely help with downloads, but they don't really help with organic. They don't improve your organic rank because downloads don't really factor into ranks in that way. There is a trick where you can get people from the app through a search term to download the app. And what that does is show the algorithm that people care about it. I wouldn't use it. I think don't rely on black hat or gray hat techniques unless you know exactly what you're doing and you really want to do that and you understand the consequences. Instead, what I would do is too many words. I would optimize for getting ratings. So ratings are the currency of App Store optimization. So the more ratings you have, the more the algorithm is likely to push your app up because it thinks it's popular. That's really the easiest way to look at it. It's a little bit more complicated, but at the end of the day, that's what it is. And so if you can make sure that your app is really, really optimized for getting ratings, you're asking at the right time, you're asking enough times, you're asking in general, some apps don't even ask, and you're using all the right tools to do that, then your ASA campaign could help you because every one of those downloads is a potential new ratings. So if your DPR is really, really high, for example, you have to make sure that you lower it before you start this campaign. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting money. So that's that. And is it okay to do in the first week? Absolutely. It doesn't really hurt anything unless you do it really, really, really poorly. And I talk about that in a few other videos. I can link to those later as well. I think that's kind of important. Okay, we'll do one more question. Adam is asking, my app is titled, did Adam ask a question before? I'm not sure. My app is titled AI Keyboard with the subtitle Texting Assistant. Should I include AI Keyboard Texting and Assistant in the keyword list for better ASO? Or is that redundant? It is redundant. It is terrible. It's going to ruin everything. Don't do that. The reason, and I'll make this very brief, I can talk about repetition for far too long, is that the algorithm applies its weight from left to right, in English at least. And so the name and the first word in the name will have the most weight, and it will go down as it goes all the way, and it connects the name, and then the subtitle, and then the keyword list. So the keyword list is really the least weight, has the least weight of all the different metadata things that you can actually do in your metadata. I said metadata multiple times. And what Apple does when you repeat keywords is it takes the last instance. So if you put, let's just say keyboard in the name, that's great. But also in the keyword list, now only the weight from the keyword list is going to apply. And that's the least amount of weight. So you're really, really, really hurting your ASO when you do that. Never do that. It's terrible. It doesn't make any sense. So that's my warning for these things. Okay, so let's get rid of these and let's go back to my computer and let's see what's next on the list of apps to optimize. So we looked at video teleprompter. I lost my mouse again. This is becoming pretty normal. Maybe I need two mice, one for each screen. And the next one is emoji with a character. Gotta love the characters. Emoji keyboard, new emojis font. So basically everything I just said not to do is happening here. But it's actually not bad. And this is a weird quirk that if you think about how the algorithm works, unfortunately kind of weirdly makes sense. I don't like it. And this is terrible. And this should be changed. And if you change it, I'm sure you'll see better results. But that's kind of a problem. But let's see where this app is ranking to begin with. So I imagine and assume that emoji is the most important keyword. And there is focus here. This is the important bit. This is very focused. There's not a ton going on here. Emoji, keyboard, new gets canceled because new is a stop word and Apple drops it. And then font. So font is good. Emoji is good. Keyboard is good. Emoji is good. Let's go for emoji. Let's see what we get. Emoji, 49. Look at this competitiveness. 100. Look at the number of results, 42,000. If you're thinking, should I make an emoji app? The answer is probably no, unless you know exactly what you're doing, because you're not going to be able to compete here. Oh, but look who's number one. Very cool. Wait. Very cool. I had to do this. So going back to my computer. This is really nice, and that's because of this little quirk that's happening here. So you see how many times emoji is being repeated? If if you think about this, what I said before, all these repetitions are going away. So this emoji and this emoji, and even emojis, the plural, they're all disappearing, and only this instance counts. But if you think about what's left at the end of all of that, keyboard, new, and new gets dropped because it's a stop word, keyboard, emoji, and font. So ultimately, the algorithm only sees keyboard and font. Now, it gives it less of a weight because it's in the subtitle. So you are losing out on that. But clearly, that's enough to get started. And that's better than what's happening with number 4 here. Number 4 is really doing a poor job. And that is because it's repeating emoji between the name and the subtitle. So not only does it have a bunch of stuff going on in the name, it also has a bunch of stuff going on in the subtitle. And then because emoji is repeated, it's going down, even though it's got 4x the number of ratings, 4.5 even. So that's kind of the weird trick of this. Now, most of these happen either by accident or someone who really knows what they're doing. I'm not entirely sure which case is the case here, but this is definitely an interesting result. I wouldn't necessarily say aim for this. That's the one thing. I think if you build it properly without the repetition in the subtitle, you could do even better. I don't know what's better than number 1 because you're already number 1, but if someone comes along and does a better job, they could dethrone this app. But this is great. I think this is beautiful. I also like what's going on here. I really like the way the video is. And I really like what's happening in the screenshots. It's insane what Apple allows and doesn't allow, kind of, I don't know, at the mercy of whoever is reviewing them. This is mostly marketing with a little bit of text. Normally, Apple really hates that, even though everyone does it. So I'm really glad they allow this because I really like what's going on here. It's pretty. And I think the results speak for themselves. So well done. And the good stuff here is focus. Again, focus. And I bet you will see this happen again and again and again. Alrighty. I'm keeping time, so this is good. Okay, so FunFinances. And this is actually, I'm cheating a little bit here because I got to meet David at the conference and he showed me this app before, but it got picked at random and I said, I want to do it anyway because there's a lot of learning in here and I can share what I told David at the conference and with everyone. And I think that's going to be a net positive. So there is a lot to learn or a lot that can be improved in this. Let me swing in to my computer back and show you what I mean. So we have a finance tracker. And a finance tracker is not something anyone really wants if you think about it. No one really wants to keep track of finances. We kind of have to. It's kind of like eating your vegetables. You have to. I like my vegetables, but in general, most people think about it as something they have to do. Most people don't actually do it. If you ask 10 friends how many of them keep perfect track of their finances, I don't know about your circle, but I'm sure in most circles, the answer is not going to be as high as you think it would be. So you have this challenge, right? You have this challenge of how do I get people to download this app that they either only need for this one specific thing or don't really want, but kind of feel like they have to. And to me, the answer is you figure out what they really need to do when they're tracking their finances. So why are you tracking your finances? What's the goal? What's the point? And if you ask enough times, I think you'll get enough use cases. You might be tracking your finances because you're trying to buy a new house. Maybe you're trying to buy a new boat. Maybe you're trying to go on a Disney vacation. Maybe you're trying to do something where it makes sense to understand your finances before you make an investment. And that can be either one of those things or probably a whole bunch more. You're buying a car, you're renting a car, you're moving. I mean, all those things can really happen. And I think that's something that lacks in a lot of these. Now, if you're a really big company like Rocket Cash, Rocket Money, one of those, or Intuit with their app that is now gone, or any of the other competitors, you can probably spend a ton of money outside the App Store and build up this sort of education that you need to get a finance tracker so you can move or so you can change jobs or so you can buy a boat. But on the App Store, you don't really have that. So you have to go off of people are already looking for this one thing. I need to make sure they understand that they might want, maybe should use a financial tracker, a finance tracker. And that's how I would go about this. So FunFinances, while nice, is not a good name because it's very long. And because it's one word, it doesn't really index in any way that is actually useful. And so what you end up with is you end up with a lot of characters that you can't really do anything with. And that's kind of a problem. So you don't really want to do that. And in general, because this is a tough category, you don't even necessarily want to compete on finances. If you can compete on any of the other long tail keywords that will help in this case, you are probably at a better standpoint against those other big competitors, and you don't have to spend nearly as much money. The other thing is, once you know that this is the use case, and you should do your research and figure out what use cases are really the best. Is it buying a boat, buying a house, really anything else? Let's take a quick look. I don't really know what to expect. So, buy house. Let's see what comes up. It's a 24, which is actually good. You want low. And you see all the standard house buying apps. So maybe this is going to be a little bit more challenging, and you need to find a slightly longer tail keyword. Say for house, let's say, really any of those keywords that I can think of are probably going to be competitive, but you got to keep iterating if you want to do this, because if you just go to finance tracker, it's already a 35. Look at this competition. Even though it's a 35, this keyword, the competitiveness is 93, and 93 is astronomical. If you can get below 80, you're at a much better starting point. But anything above an 80 or an 85 just means that there is probably 1 or 2 or 3 apps at the top that are really strong, and it's going to be really tough to dethrone them. So that's really the challenge that I see here, and that's how I would go about it. I think that's not a standard approach. I think that's not what most people would go. They would try to find ways to go at Finance Tracker, but with maybe long tail keywords, or maybe try to find a roundabout way to go at Finance Tracker. But you're expecting that people know that they want a Finance Tracker. And I'm sure there are people who know, but if you want to go after the bigger market, you can go after the intent they have. If you can figure that out, I think you can win. I don't think you need to compete with the big guys as much. So I think that could be a really, really, really big advantage. Okay, let's see what we got in the chat. So where was I? I was here. Let's see. So JZ31 is saying, I'm getting more monthly ratings than my competition, but not moving up in rankings. What else can I do? If that's the case, it's probably going to go down to your keyword placement. No duplication, making sure that the right keywords are in the name, focusing, and not having too many keywords, or using multiple localizations. If you do that, and if you do that well, those ratings should really bump you up. If you don't, the ratings can't really help you. And the reason that is because the algorithm thinks in 2 stages. Stage number 1 is, which apps should I even consider for this keyword? And if your app does not do its keyword placement or makes mistakes like keyword duplication, it might be in the consideration set, but it's going to be very low to begin with. And so then the algorithm takes the apps and tries to sort them, and it's not going to be strong enough to get up in the ranks, even though it has the ratings. The ratings don't really change too much with how the algorithm indexes. They only change where it is in the list a little bit. So you want to make sure that you're super focused on doing the right thing with keywords, and then those ratings are going to be really, really useful. So that's how I would go about this. Namita's asking what to put in keyword field in different locales. Can we repeat keywords in keyword field in different locales? And the answer is yes. Now, that maybe. I saw a tweet yesterday from someone who's saying that's not the case anymore. I have not seen this myself, so I have to do a lot more research. But in my research, you can repeat keywords in different localizations. So within the localization, do not repeat the keywords. In different localizations, you can. So if you need to use the word photo, for example, for both photo editing and photo duplication, let's just say, you can put duplication and photo in one localization, and you can put editing and photo in another localization. They're not going to be considered duplicates from everything I know. And so you're using photo twice, but not within the localization. And another little thing is when you're using the localization tip, you can use the name, the subtitle, and the keyword list, not just the keyword list. So use that. You can duplicate the description, though. The description is irrelevant for App Store optimization, and you need to have something. So you want that. Ralph is asking, have you ever made a post/article regarding the overall hierarchy of keywords between primary languages, secondary languages, and their respective title, subtitle keywords? No, I haven't. And the reason is because I've not found there to be any sort of hierarchy, meaning Apple does treat English in the US the same that it treats Spanish, Mexico in the US. That's what I've found. It's possible there are many nuances to this that I haven't seen yet. I may need to do a much bigger study now that there are 10 countries, which is fairly new, a year plus. And so I have not seen the changes, the differences just yet, and that's why I haven't wrote about it. Once that happens, if I do see changes, I will make sure everyone knows. Let's see what else. Okay. This is a question I get all the time. Can I use the iOS ASO strategy from macOS, or are they completely different? And the answer is you can. You absolutely can. The behavior on the Mac App Store is very similar to the behavior on the App Store, and that's because why would Apple come up with a new algorithm if you think about it? There's really no reason. It's not like one is better than the other. It's not like one gets more love. That's not true. But from a technical perspective, a store is a store is a store. And so they do work the same, but you have slightly different things that you can look at. The number of ratings in the Mac App Store are usually lower than they are in the iOS App Store, so it's not as big of a signal, even though it should be, because at the core, that's what it is. But use the same everything. The way you think about the name, the way you think about the subtitle, the way you think about your keyword list, the way you use localizations. You can use that across the board, and that's going to help you. I wish the Mac App Store was getting more love from Apple. I really want to see it succeed. If anyone from Apple is watching this and you need ideas for how to make it better, please let me know. I have quite a few. Okay, Leonardo is asking, how does the App Store handle multiple words separated by special characters and spaces? Example, our app is called Truth and Tales. Is it okay to use Truth and Tales? So Apple uses all of the special characters, the known special characters at least, as delimiters, including a space. So it's going to tokenize your name into Truth, Tales. It doesn't really look at and. It's a stop word, so it just throws it out. Same for an ampersand. So you can probably do the same. Me personally, I always remind people that you're not just optimizing for the algorithm, you're optimizing for people. So you don't necessarily want to optimize in a way that would make the name look ugly or make it harder to read. To me, Truth, Amp, Tales with no spaces is really hard to read. So if I'm looking at this and maybe it's later in the evening or something like that and my brain is already done, I'm not going to see it as two words. I'm just going to see it as a big blurb and I'm going to move on, unless the icon is really catchy. So keep that in mind. And again, because of focus, thanks to focus, the less you do, the better you are. And so you don't really have to always look at how do I squeeze one more character or two more characters out. One thing that is cool that I will say, and that's something that I saw at the conference from one of the apps, there is a character, an HTML character called mid-dot. And that mid-dot comes with spaces. It's a dot with spaces on the ends. So one character gives you 3 characters. There is a problem with that. It's good for the eyes. I've only seen this once in my entire career of looking at keywords, or maybe twice. And I thought this was really brilliant because it adds the spacing and it's built in. So that's nice. But keep in mind, there's a bug with the App Store where ASCII characters or characters that require, not ASCII, UTF, characters that are longer will show up in the algorithm as 2 characters, even though you think they're 1. And so if you're using something like the mid-dot or really any of those other characters, make sure that you're not using 30 characters in the name. App Store Connect will allow you to do it, but then the algorithm is just going to trim it, and it's really ugly, and it just means that your last keyword is not going to be treated the way you think it should be treated. It's going to be chopped off. So don't do that. If you're doing something like the mid-dot, for every one of those instances, drop 1 character. So drop to 29 if you're using 1, to 28, to 27. And if you want to be extra safe, drop an extra 1. That's what I do. But again, if you're focusing, that's unlikely even to be an issue. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, JZ31 is also asking, I see phrases like teleprompter for iPad. This is a common trend on the App Store. Is that good long tail keyword, or is for iPad given to us for free? That's a tough one. Apple really didn't like when people said for whatever version for. Apple doesn't even like the name app, the word app inside of app name. So in general, it's probably not a good idea, but with everything, if Apple allows you to do it, sometimes you can get a metadata rejection for something like that. And I think they've become a lot more lenient on what they allow to do. I've seen this with widgets as well. Widgets used to be really frowned upon. The algorithm actually penalized apps with widget in the name for a long time, and that does not seem to be the case anymore. So try it, see if it works. potentially use it in one of the other localizations. So let's say one of the languages that you can use in the US for indexing is Vietnamese, a language that most apps that I know do not actually localize for. And when I say localize, I should clarify that we're not talking about localizing the app. We're only talking about localizing the app's metadata, what's visible in the App Store. That's a question I got a bunch of times at the conference as well. So you're only localizing the metadata. And again, that's something that most apps don't do. So you can use that language and try different things in it, including something like teleprompter for iPad. And if that does work, either bring it into your main localization because you want it to be visible to more people, or just leave it there and enjoy the downloads. That's how I would go about it. Okay, so that was a lot of questions. I don't even know how much time I have. Oh, we still have time. Okay, we're doing well. Let's go back and let's try the next app on my list. This was Emoji with a character. This was FunFinances. This is background editor, blur photo. Okay, I like what I see so far. Let's see what this means. So background editor, blur photo. There's a lot of stuff going on here. AI eraser, remove people object. Well, this is not bad. Again, this is not focused at all. There's zero focus in this, and we'll see if that's a problem for it. I see a bunch of ratings in the US. Let's see if that's something that happened over a long period of time, or if this is happening constantly, and that's going to be the differentiator. But there's definitely a lot going on here. Now, I imagine that the thinking behind this is we have this app that has a ton of features. Let's make sure that all the features are on display for anyone who really wants either one of those features or all the features. But because there's so many apps that don't do all the things or know how to focus with their metadata, competing with them is a challenge. So let's look for background editor, which seems to be the most important thing here. And let's see what we see for background editor. Goodbye, finance tracker. Hello, background editor. So a popularity of 40, competitiveness is getting really high. A lot of results. And let's see if our app is in here. Our app is in here. Hooray. Number 5. So this is good. 22 ratings, not that good. And this is, oh wow, okay, we stumbled upon something very exciting. We stumbled upon an opportunity. Let's see if I have a opportunity. This is a good opportunity, and this is a good thing that you want to stumble upon. You see that I call this an opportunity because if you look at the apps that are being ranked for background remover or background editor, there aren't many apps that target it directly like number 5 does. So all these other apps are not really targeting background editor. They're targeting a combination of things, one of which is background editor. If the algorithm sees this, it is more likely to give priority to the app that has it as 2 words or as consecutive words and not as a combination of many other things. So in other words, the app that is focused on that keyword is probably going to win. And you see that happening here. I mean, you see a whole bunch of other apps that are getting this because they have background somewhere in their name or their keyword list. Like in this case, we have background here. And then we have, where's our editor? Editor probably in the keyword list. Same with this, background and editor. So they're reversed and they're not in the bestest of orders, but 4.4 thousand ratings, just it's very hard to beat when you're at 22. But then at the same time, at 22, you're number 5. So the focus here, and this is not even as focused, this could be more focused. The focus that we see here is really helpful when you don't have a lot of ratings. Now, you can go out, use Apple Search Ads to get a lot more ratings. And if you get into probably 700 keywords, 700 ratings, I keep confusing the two, 800 ratings, you're probably going to climb up into maybe 2nd or 3rd spot pretty quickly within a few weeks. It's a tall order, so I'm not going to say that's your only way of going about it, because based on a DPR of 32, if you want to get 1,000 ratings, you need 32,000 downloads. And that's probably going to be a little bit expensive. So let's not worry about that, but instead worry about focus. So we have background editor and blur photo. If we drop blur photo from this, it's going to look considerably better. And I think that's really what it should be. So that's really what's going on here. And I just realized you're not seeing my computer, you're seeing my face. So I'll bring my computer back. So number 5 here has a lot of words, but only 22 ratings. All these other apps do not target this keyword directly. That's the opportunity. That's what the confetti was for. This is a great find. Now I would use, if I'm background editor, blur photo, what I would use is the way of using localizations for multiple keyword sets. Put blur photo into one keyword set. What else is going on here? AI eraser, put that in a different keyword set. Background remover, put that in a different keyword set. And so now we have all these different, but still very focused keyword sets, and those can really help you even with only 22 ratings. So let's see what blur photo is like. Is blur photo also an opportunity? Not as much at all. And that's why we don't see this app in even the top 15 list. Maybe it's in here somewhere, but we don't see it because this is not an opportunity, and here you have to target it. But also interesting here, there aren't that many new ratings. And so because they're targeting it, they're making it to the top without needing 4,400 ratings or 1,600 ratings or crazy numbers like that. I mean, we're talking about 9. So this is the opposite. This is a different kind of opportunity. Way more difficult to compete in this. So I would drop this completely from the name, move it to a different localization that's only focused on blur photo, and you actually have a chance of competing here if you can do that. I mean, you're competing with a 9 and a 27 and a 28, and worst case scenario, 161. That's not going to be too difficult. So that's what you want to do. That's what I would do in this case. Split it up, focus each one individually, and go from there. And I should say, I promised a nice surprise. So I know a lot of people like to follow along with this, and you can use Keyword Inspector, my favorite tool, across all of our, need some tea, across all of our plans. So you can easily do that. But if you want to get that additional information that I'm looking at, like the DPR and the ratings and the downloads, which are really incredibly important to understanding what you can do, I created a promo code for this. So you can follow along, and you can use all the tools that I use to really kickstart your app's ASO or improve it, or do it from scratch, whatever it is, whatever stage you're at. 30% off for 3 months with that code that's on the screen. It's going to expire very soon, so don't wait. It's also pretty limited because this is such a good deal, and I've been giving way too many promo codes lately, so I need to slow down. But if you're here, and obviously you care about your app's optimization, you deserve this. So take advantage of this. I'll bring it up in just a little bit so you can see it again, and we can and you can follow along or do this now or after. Okay, back to my computer, and let's see what's next. So we looked at background, editor, and eraser, and we're seeing the same thing over and over. Focus, use localizations, and make sure that you have enough ratings. Let's see if the next one is this. Hit the island. What's your high score? So this looks like fun. I want to play it right now. I want to take my phone out of my pocket and just play this, but we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to analyze how to get more people to do that. And the challenge is, I think once you land on this page, if you're looking for something simple and easy to play, you're probably going to download this. It's free. It looks like fun. The video does an amazing job at making this into what it is. And the video doesn't even do anything special, it just captures the real app. So you're thinking as a user, I should download this. The only thing is, how would I find this? I'm not going to look for Hit the Island. I'm not going to look for what's your score. So I think this app is pretty invisible unless you do Apple search ads or you advertise it outside the App Store or you get featured. But when it comes to search, you have to give people something to search for. Now, I don't really know what would be the best way to do this. So what I would try and do is either look at competitors and try to steal their keywords, or look at what people are trying to play. This is kind of a fun game. So let's look for maybe a bump game. Bump game. Okay, so not the most popular thing, but maybe it'll give us some ideas. Bump pop. I don't really know what that is. That sounds like fun. What is bump pop? Okay, not at all the same, but interesting nevertheless. Although I definitely see where this came from, the subtitle for Hit the Island. So I think the challenge, and especially with games, we see this a lot more often. What do you target? And you don't have to target anything, but then you're not going to get as many downloads. And people are looking for games, especially if your game does not have the budget to advertise outside the App Store or even with Apple search ads, or if you want to augment that so you don't have to spend as much or stretch your spend to be more. you should look for other keywords that you can ride in order to get people to your app. So coming back to Hit the Island, there are a lot of different things that you can do, that you can use this. Arcade is one of those. Fun arcade game can be one of those. Now, fun arcade game is probably a really competitive keyword, so let's see what's happening with fun arcade game. It's loading, it's loading. Everything is happening in real time, which is always fun. I guess not many people search for a fun arcade game. Let's see, loading, loading. So there's a lot going on in here too. And I think still interesting. 167, not even that new. So the algorithm, I would say, is sufficiently confused about this keyword. It doesn't really know who is the funnest of arcade games. And that's because most apps don't actually target fun arcade games. So unless you're this, fun in-game and arcade here. So you see, this is kind of an opportunity. So instead of just saying what your app does, your app is Hit the Island, add something that would let people know what it does. Then when you let people know what it does, you let the algorithm know what it does. Now, there's a question that just came up in the chat that I see that is very relevant. Let me bring that up on the screen. This is a question that I get very, very often, and that is, what's enough ratings? And the answer is, whatever your competition has. You want to have more, or you want to have at least a similar amount. The algorithm isn't that discerning between, let's say, 100 and 110, or 110 and 90. Those are all kind of the same. And because this is time-based, it's based on the last 30 days from what I've seen, it doesn't really matter if you're close enough, you're going to be competitive. So you always want to look at the competition. And that's why we have this in Inspector, because in Inspector, that's really the best way to look at it. So you can easily see that here, 3,400 ratings is kind of what you need, or at least be in the thousands in order to get this. This is what happens when you target it a little bit better. So again, the ratings and the keyword placement work hand in hand. The better your app is optimized, the less number of ratings you would need, but ratings would not always save you if you're doing a really poor job. So make sure that your placement is actually the best it can be. I wrote a guide about that. I will link to it later in the description so you can read it and see all the little tricks for how to do that right. There aren't that many. It's common sense for the most part, but I put all my tips for how I do it and how it's really the best way to talk to the algorithm, to help the algorithm, not talk to the algorithm. That's a better way of looking at it. How to do that. So that's how I would go about it, and I'll leave that for later. But I took some comments. So let's take a few more comments. And let me go back so I'm as in order as possible. So Nathan is asking, you said something like 30, 40 in popularity, but what is a good start for competitiveness for the keyword we target? I get this question all the time too. Competitiveness is a very different type of metric when compared to popularity. Popularity gives you a number that is growing exponentially and is meant to give you an idea of the kind of traffic that you can expect, while competitiveness really tries to analyze how difficult or how strong are the apps at the top. And the stronger the apps at the top are, the worse it's going to be for you when you need to fight them, regardless of who you are. You can be the strongest app in the store, but if you're going strong against strong, that's still challenging. Now, the only thing that is really, really obvious is if you are a very strong app coming into a very low competitiveness. That doesn't happen too often because most keywords are not very low in competitiveness, and that's because the algorithm does a really good job at always finding results. It does the best that it can, and when it can't, it will find the best results that are tangentially related, and those will usually end up being more challenging results to compete against because they have a lot of ratings and they have a lot of that going for them. So I wouldn't really say that there is a good competitiveness level. What I would say is that you always want to aim for the lowest competitiveness. I can speak. The lowest competitiveness, the lowest score that you can find within the range of keywords that you selected. So if you're trying to evaluate which keywords to focus on, because you definitely want to focus, you want to make sure that they have the lowest competitiveness score possible. Now, it does change if you run or if you come across something like the opportunity that we saw before. in that case, the top is less relevant because they're not optimizing really well. So if you do find those, perfect, great. Ignore the competitiveness. Use only the understanding that it's a real opportunity. And I'm working on a way to highlight opportunities so you don't have to think about this. And that is done automatically as part of a bigger product that we're going to put out that will help you find keywords even faster and identify those opportunities without even having to know that they exist. More on that later. I said nothing. You know nothing. Let's see what else we have here. Airbeam TV is asking, would you recommend to have the US metadata different as the UK metadata? Yes and no and maybe. It really depends. So in the US specifically, if you're optimizing for the US specifically, the UK is less relevant. From everything that Apple says, it's irrelevant. From things that I've heard about anecdotally, it might be relevant, but it's not the most important thing. In other countries, English UK is the most important thing. So if you are using English in the US and English in the UK, make sure that both of them are really, really good. If you're only using English in the US, it will translate to English in the UK, and then it's kind of the same. So same as let's use more of these localizations. This is yet another opportunity to experiment and do more. Fred is asking a very open-ended question of any new insights or algorithm changes. The algorithm changes kind of often. I haven't seen anything too drastic recently. There are some people who are saying that now the localizations also get smushed together and you shouldn't repeat between them. And if you do, you should repeat just between all the names or all the subtitles or all the keyword lists. I have not been able to prove that. I haven't done a lot of work either. So we'll see. If that is the case, I'll let you know. But any insights? Not really. I think the same things that we talk about all the time continue to be the core of what ASO is all about. Look at your ratings, look at your keyword placement, and make sure you're not doing any sort of ugly repetition, and you'll be good. And experiment. What would you rank ratings on a scale of 1 to 10? I have no idea how to answer this question. It really depends on, again, your keyword placement and the number of ratings. If your keyword placement is perfect, your ratings are going to be a 10. You have to have the right ratings. And that is if your competitors also have the perfect keyword placement. And you see that in stuff that's really, really, really popular and really competitive, like dating apps. What else? Food delivery apps. All the ones that are investing a ton on these, they will all kind of look the same because it is ultimately what they're all trying to do. So their ratings do make sense. And the littlest changes in keyword placement make a humongous difference. If your app is not optimized at all, your ratings, I don't know, maybe a 4, maybe a 5, maybe a soft 6, something like that. I tried. Okay, so one more question. Airbeam TV is asking, is US metadata being used in all countries? We have an app that is only available in the US plus the Netherlands. We see that US keywords are being ranked in the Netherlands. Well, the thing is, it really depends on your localization. So if you are localized, if your app store page is localized for the Netherlands, it will use that. If it is not, then it will use the English localization because that's your default language. I have to look at the guide and see what the Netherlands uses. It might also rely on English from the UK. And if you don't have a localization for the UK, it'll come from the US. But that is actually something that happens in most countries. And this is something that people are really confused about because they go into the platform and they go into keywords and they look at competitor keywords in China or in Japan or in other countries that don't speak English natively. And they will see a lot of searches in English. And not only that, they'll see a lot of high popularity searches. And the reason for that is most apps just don't localize. And many of those countries also speak English. And so ultimately, you get to a point where in order to find an app, you can't use your local language. If you're in Japan and you're looking in Japanese and the app is not localized in Japanese, your odds of finding it are really slim to none. So people are looking in other languages for some of the more basic searches, some of the more advanced searches. Depends on the niche and depends on what type of app we're looking at. And they're finding those apps in English. And because it's happening enough times, the popularity goes up. So that's pretty normal. That's pretty common. I think it's going to take a long time for the entire App Store to be localized into many of these countries. And the bigger countries will get more love. The smaller countries will get no love. So ultimately, English keywords do make sense. And I should analyze this and probably put an insight about it. Most apps are not localized into most languages, as I'm sure not shocking this is. So that's what happens. And that's why this is a problem. Okay. Let's see. Should we do one more app? We have 6 minutes. Let's do one more app. I'll remind you to like the video if you're enjoying this so far. because that's what I have to do. I'm an optimizer. So like it if you like it, and if you like optimizing and stuff. And let's continue. So let's take this off and let's go back to my computer and let's see what I had listed. So is this the next app? Yes, this is the next app. Weather radar. I guess we're going from difficult to more difficult in this live app teardown. So let me try and do this really quickly. So in 5 minutes, what do we have? Weather radar, rain viewer. I already see the same problem that we saw before. The main issue is there's a lot of stuff going on here. It's a weather radar, but it's also, oh, it's not rain viewer. Rain viewer is the name of the app. Okay, so you see that's kind of a challenge. We have a live map. We have a local forecast. We have a widget. So there's still a lot of stuff going on here. This is kind of busy. But let's see if this works. So let's throw weather radar into it. Place your bets. Let's see where this app is ranking. If you know where this app is ranking, don't tell me. I will know soon enough. Oh, wow. 52 popularity, 100 competitiveness, 4,000 results. Okay, this is too many things. There's no way this app is ranking here. Yeah, and that's what we see. I mean, Apple is ranked 13th on this. That's how challenging this is. Although I don't believe any rank when I see an Apple app. I think it's all somehow someone made it happen. So let's ignore this altogether. But this is not a keyword that you can easily compete in. And let's see. Yeah, this is going to be really, really, really challenging, especially with, well, 25,000 ratings is a decent number, but this is lifetime. This is not last 30 days. And if we're looking at this, there's really a lot going on here. Oh, wow. So this is a problem. I would say let's stay away from this keyword. It's not going to work out. So this is kind of a real problem for many, many apps. And that is you're targeting a keyword that is so competitive, you can't compete. And what you're doing is you're telling the algorithm, I am a weather radar. And the algorithm's like, okay, well, you're not the most popular weather radar. So I'll show you later, maybe on page 50. No one's going to get there. So that's kind of a problem. And what you want to do is look for all the other keywords that you can find that do make sense. So maybe you want to look at weather map. Maybe you want to look at local weather. Let's do this. Let's do this really quickly in the last 3 minutes that I have. So local weather. Okay, this is a 22. Now we're talking. This is a lot better. Apple's #1, of course. Why not? But this is an app that you can actually compete in. If once we have the DPRs and the ratings, yeah, you see, this is not too difficult. So this is, again, this is an opportunity. We found us an opportunity. Opportunity. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a special animation every time we come across an opportunity with like a whole soundbite and that's for next time. But this is a great opportunity. And because of that, local weather radar and forecast with 106 new ratings is ranking ahead of a 27,000 ratings app that is probably also really, really, really popular for a variety of reasons. And so that's really what you have to be thinking about. Look for these opportunities, find them, and do it. And in this case, that's exactly what I would do here. I would make this local weather -rain viewer and then make radar, put it somewhere else. It's going to be really hard to compete in it. So I don't know if I would put it back into the subtitle or even the keyword list here. I would give it a whole other localization just in case or as things grow. But this is what I would do. You focus on the keywords that do work. Someone said in the comments, in the chat, that these screenshots are nice. And I kind of like it. I do like the feel of this. It feels very good. Like it glows in my mind. Rainproof outdoor activities is not necessarily how I would think about this. I don't know if I can. To me, rainproofing an activity is putting some sort of a something over my head, a little roof. But if it works, it works. And one of the cool things that you can learn by doing this is if you're using keywords that are getting you downloads, you should use the same keywords in the actual screenshots. And the reason is keywords are all about intent. So if you know that the user came to you with the intent of rainproofing something, you should use that because that's how they found you, but also because they looked for that. If they see it in the screenshots, they're a lot more likely to actually download the app. That's something I talk about in the guide to how to do screenshots, which I can also link to. And I'm definitely sure I'm going to remember all these guides, so check the description later. And I wasn't able to do all the apps I wanted, but I think this is the most I've done in a single live stream. We did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. I think that's a record. I think 5 was my previous record, and 3 was kind of normal. So I'm getting better at this. Maybe next time I'll do 8. Then maybe next time I'll do 10. But for now, that's pretty much all I have for you. Let me see if there's any other questions that I can answer really, really quickly. And then we'll continue. And if you're liking this video, don't use the like next to the chat because that goes away. The real like is the other like that's below the video. We're at 42 now. Let's get to 50, 60 in like the next minute. Can we do it? Let's see. I'm going to answer questions for now. We'll do 1 or 2 questions. So we'll see. Paulo is asking, you talk about the cross-localization. I'm doing it in my apps. Can we use keywords from the US title in MX or AR keywords field? Will that hurt? Title from US, cross-localize keywords field from MX or AR. Thanks. TKX. Yes, you can absolutely use the same keywords. That's the whole idea. So each localization is independent from everything that I've seen. I know it kind of sounds weird, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. May have changed, but pretty sure that's how it works. So because each localization is independent, as long as you don't duplicate within the localization, you can reuse keywords from other localizations. So that's hopefully an easy one. Noor's asking repetition versus sequence. Let's say phone recorder has a popularity of 50, and phone call has a popularity of 50, and considering both are winning cards for the ASO, and we are trying to capture both. So yes, if you want to capture both and you like both, what I would do is try to use, and both have the exact same popularity, look for the one with the lowest competitiveness score, or the lower competitiveness score, I should say, and the lowest number of competitors. Use that first, because that means it's going to be easier for you to rank. If all else is the same, everything is identical, including that, your guess is as good as mine, and you can opt for both. But instead, use 2 localizations, one for phone recorder and one for phone call. In this way, you're not splitting the algorithm juju across 2 really good keywords for you. You're giving it 100% from 2 different spaces. So that's how I would do it. I think that's the easiest and best way to do it. Now, I didn't get to a lot of questions. I know there's a lot going on in the chat. I'm going to try and read these later and answer them in comments if I can. And I'm going to try and go through the last 2 apps that I had on my computer open because I already had them and I want to keep that. What is happening here? Where's my mouse? We'll find my mouse. Found my mouse. So I'm going to go and do, what is this? This one is sticker book for text messages. And I'm going to do workout sessions either in the comments or maybe I'll do it on Twitter and I'll link to it in the comment. I try to do more of these keyword teardowns on Twitter and people love them. So I'll try to do these 2 at some point soon and we'll see how that goes. But that's pretty much all I have for you today. I am just a little bit behind schedule. Hopefully you enjoy this. And again, if you want the promo code that I put out before, it's on the screen again. It will expire very soon and it is limited. So if you want this 30% off for 3 months, please get it now before it goes away. Otherwise, I really enjoy this. I hope you had fun. If you need anything, you can find me on Twitter. I'll leave my Twitter handle, which is my full name, in the description later so you can find me and say hello. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I will go through and answer them later on. That's pretty much all I have for you today. We'll get this off and we'll say goodbye.